This is something I've thought about recently with playing SWOTOR and playing LOTRO. And originally, I had thought, dropping another code in chat, by the way. There's 100 more LOTRO points. Originally, I had thought that LOTRO's cap was fine, and that there wasn't like a problem with it, you know? I didn't like think anything of it because I had just thought it wasn't something. What's the word? I've thought about this with SWOTOR. So SWOTOR's level cap is 80. It has been 80 for a long time. LOTRO's level cap is 160. So it's a pretty stark difference between the two level caps. And at first, I had wondered about that because I started playing SWOTOR when the level cap in SWOTOR was level 55. And I thought that was a fine level cap, whatever. I didn't necessarily think anything of it. But I was also like 13 at the time, I think. And like, between the two games, you level in SWOTOR so much more efficiently. Like, I've had my new main on SWOTOR for like 3 weeks, I think, and I am 20 levels away from cap. I am level 60. And the crazy part about that whole experience is the fact that in SWOTOR, not only do you level up so much faster, but you don't have nearly as much to level with. And so, for the instance of your PvPer, even though it's so much easier to get to cap to do PvP. Or if you're wanting to play SWOTOR and you're wanting to raid, you can get to cap really quickly and start raiding really fast. It doesn't require you to spend either hundreds of hours or like thousands of hours sometimes, depending on if you know what you're doing or not. But hundreds to thousands of hours, or like you can just spend like 100 hours leveling maybe in SWOTOR to get to cap. And that's even if you watch all the cutscenes and you're really focusing on story. But if you're just like, I don't care about the story, you can get to cap really fast. And then you can just do a lot in the game. Now, granted, SWOTOR does things differently, where if you want to raid, you have to be a subscriber. And if you are wanting to do PvP, you have a PvP cap unless you are subbed. Yo, what's up, Cheeky? Are we doing well? So, like, those are things that, like, paywall you a little bit, that some people will find really annoying. But whereas, but like the efficiency is there. And I don't think, it's just, I feel like LOTRO is in just such a tough situation in this regard, because LOTRO is always I'm so dead. Okay, I guess we're eating a bean. LOTRO has prided itself on being a game that is focusing around its world It's focusing around its leveling process. It focuses on its story. It focuses on its exploration. It focuses on the world around it. It doesn't focus on its endgame. SWTOR is the same way, but SWTOR doesn't sacrifice so... I don't even want to say LOTRO sacrifices a lot. There's just so much that goes into leveling that it genuinely can make it very difficult and off-putting for new players to get into. And that's the thing that makes me really nervous about LOTRO continuing to look at increasing its cap. And so let's say, for instance, in the expansion that's supposed to be coming out at the end of this year, LOTRO drops a level cap increase to 170. And that would be huge. It would be an absolute... It'd be such a massive level cap, honestly. And, like, I think in theory, that sounds really cool. In practice, that is a huge problem. Because, A, anybody who does PvP has to level 10 levels in order to be able to enjoy the PvP that they want to their fullest potential, unless they play creep. But anybody who wants to do hardcore PvP content, telling them just go play creep, as Intharth will tell you, it don't work. And for a new player who is looking at getting into LOTRO and is like, yo, Lord of the Rings MMO, that looks awesome. Let's play it. What does this mean? What is the level cap? 170? Heck nah, I'm out. They're like, I don't want to spend my entire time playing the game leveling. Some people, they might look at the leveling process and think it's fun. Me, I am loving the leveling process. I'm having a blast. But I'm not looking at getting into raiding. Well, I am looking at getting into raiding, but I'm not looking at making raiding the core of my gameplay. I'm not looking at making high-end endgame content the core of my gameplay. Could it possibly be when I get there? Maybe. I do want to try it, and I do want to focus on it and have a character that I am trying to get through high-end content with. It's why I'm in the Peregrine Raiders Discord server. Like, that's genuinely something I'm interested in. It's even why I'm making and leveling this champion, because I want her to be a PvP focused character. I want to be able to have another melee DPS character that I can use. It's not a burglar. I want to be able to have that. But at the same time, the thought of trying to go through and leveling more characters to be able to fit all of these certain molds is going to be really tough. And I also don't want to have to spend a lot of money to do so. Some characters or some players might be like, I don't want to do this, but they also probably don't want to spend the crazy amount of money that it takes to level boost, and especially as a new player, don't do it. Valar boosting as a new player is the scariest thing you can do. You genuinely do not want to do it at all. It is the biggest mistake you can make. I Valar boosted one character specifically so that way I could just visit whatever area I wanted to and use them to record B-roll for content. And good golly, Miss Molly, is it not the move? Eventually, I'm going to have to, like, eventually I'm going to go through and I'm going to level an actual hunter. Because doing that, I can, I will be able to have a ranged DPS that I can play as, because that's really what I want. I want a melee DPS, I want a ranged DPS, and then I'll level a Runekeeper for healing. So that way I can basically fill those two main roles, because those are the roles I want to fulfill. But getting to that point is going to be very tough. And it's going to require a ton of time. And so I'm worried about having the leveling cap being so high. I genuinely am worried that if LOTRO really wants to grow, they might actually have to do the condensing for the leveling. Because it's going to be very difficult to appeal to new players if your leveling app is that big. It is. And I want to see LOTRO grow, because I genuinely think out of all of the MMOs that I have played, it does the most things right. Like, I genuinely believe that it does the leveling the best in terms of, like, making areas unique, making questing fun. Like, I genuinely think LOTRO does those things the best. I think its group content is the best. I think the landscape difficulty makes it even more fun to go through and do questing, because you can make questing significantly less of a chore and make it more of just like a fun challenge. But also, the biggest thing that is going to hold itself back is going to be how long it takes to get to endgame. Even if you're not necessarily an endgame focused game, that is always going to be a player's goal in mind, regardless of who they are. Whether there's somebody that says, I'm going to take it slow, or I'm going to go fast, or I'm going to, just mess around and see what happens. Usually, people's goal is going to be thinking about endgame, thinking about what it's going to look like when they get to max level, what they're going to do with their characters when they hit max level, especially if they're people that come from other MMOs and have endgame experience. That's going to be a thing that they're thinking about. Came from when I started playing LOTRO, I had come from endgame experience in SWTOR. And not a lot of endgame experience, but enough for me to have an endgame thought process when I got to LOTRO. And I've been playing for a year, and I still am not even close to seeing endgame. Now, part of that, I haven't just power focused a character. I've created alts, I've done events, whatever, deleted mains, stuff like that. But still, I've had an endgame focused mindset in thinking about what I want to do when I get to endgame. And so those are things that players just have that mindset. And if there's not a better way to go about helping players get to endgame without making them spend money, and a lot of money at that, then I think LOTRO might be actually in more trouble at getting new players than people actually think they're going to be. So that's just my thought. I really want to see LOTRO grow. I really want to see its player base improve. I really want to see people be able to stick with the game long term. It is very hard for somebody to want to stick with the game long term, knowing that it's going to take them a stupidly long time to get to Endgame unless they're already invested in what LOTRO is. That includes everything from PvP to role playing to raiding, every single aspect of post game content. You have to figure out a good way to be able to make that more accessible. Otherwise, you're just going to turn players away.